The next sections relate to the global assessment, the market assessment, and the industry assessment. And what we're saying here again is we're taking that step back. We've looked at competitive assessment, a social assessment, right, a quality assessment. We've looked at the organizational assessment. I've gotten those 4 pieces of data pulled in. Now I want to take a step back and look at, okay, wait, what's going on in the big world that might impact me in this organization? What's going on in the industry that might impact me and this organization in terms of our market planning? And what's going on in the market internally and externally? So in this chapter, you can read about all of the global information that might be out there that might prove to be helpful to us. And I'm saying to you, I'd like you to look up a couple and find some research-based insight about any of these kinds of issues that directly relate to the type of marketing plan that you're writing. You can look at any of the student samples and see again them completed or shared in a variety of ways. But for example, one of the issues going on legally in the state of Michigan right now that will impact our industry, and I can do it like this, whoa, you will see a proposed Michigan law requiring schools to open after Labor Day. What, you say? 10 years ago, we fought hard, right, as an industry to make sure our school systems opened after Labor Day because August is the best month to travel in Michigan in terms of weather and our natural resources, and not the only month by any means, but the best in terms of consistent weather, etc. So we knew, and we've proven as an industry, that by moving Labor Day schools to start after Labor Day, it pushed the vacation calendar and people traveled the month of August, the whole month of August, instead of just the first week like historically. So this type of legislative impact right now will be incredibly concerning to the tourism industry in Michigan. If 10 years we've had that piece of legislation, and now schools want local control, which was the argument 10 years ago. So this is hot on the books right now, a legal issue that has data to support why or why not we do that. This could be a piece that for many of your marketing plans will have an impact. So that's the kind of legal issue we should be aware of, because marketing, what we do, will dramatically change. If this passes, right? If something like that passes, it will change my resort, my attraction, anybody who's reaped the benefit of having a longer season. Our business pattern increased the month of August, right? Because of the school calendar. And we know there's a direct relationship to that. When kids are off of school, guess what? People travel more. That market does, certainly. So, which is a huge market, right? So knowing that, that would be an example of a legal issue going on in our state, in our nation. Things like minimum wage changes directly and specifically impact us because we hire so many of our workers in our industry at minimum wage. You make one change to minimum wage, that's a whole bunch more revenue we've got to find and develop and grow. So lots of issues related to that. You can look at any sample plans. And for example, here's one here, right, that these students looked at global issues. I'm going to do my show and tell this way today versus all on slides. But there was Michelle Obama's plan to end child obesity, a whole research study that was done about her movement and her push of why, how the farm to table movement is helping grow the economy. That's a global issue, right? It certainly is going to relate to this marketing plan was written for a yogurt shop, okay? Minimum wage, what that will mean to small businesses, right? Right there. So I encourage you to look at all of the past student marketing plans. They have a great deal of relevant, helpful global insight, certainly right there. But I also encourage you to go to the, again, qualified sources of information, not just a plain Google search like what's going on in the world, but look at professional associations. They always are gathering data and insight related to the global world, economic issues, society issues, etc. Always go to data research sources like our library resources that I mentioned, etc. So your job here is to gather some information about what's going on in the global world that will affect your agency and this marketing plan. Look at past samples of students' work. Find valid and reliable sources of secondary information that will help you learn insight, like hot off the press, that, very concerning, right? And it will dramatically impact how we market this agency if legislation like that passes. So critically important that we look at the global world. And again, check your textbook for more insight, but not necessarily within all the topics. You just need to get a couple pieces of information to show me you can, and show me you know how. Qualified, research-based insight. Be careful, you're not looking at just people's opinions, because there's a million, zillion, gazillion opinions on the web. You're looking for qualified, valued information, because you're going to use it to make marketing decisions. You don't want to base it on a biased, not research-based viewpoint. Global issues, critically important. Find some that relate to your topic and plan, and share those with your site in this marketing plan. Okay, again, you're looking at global insight there. Industry assessment then pulls back from the global world and looks at our industry specifically. And our industry, meaning the industry you're writing this marketing plan for. Food service, recreation, tourism, attraction, lodging, right? Whatever aspect of the industry you're writing this plan for is your industry. So we always have that umbrella industry that includes us all, so it certainly might be relevant here, but more specifically I'm looking for detail that's going on in your industry. So in terms of offerings, in terms of markets, in terms of problems and solutions that organizations are having, in terms of technological or supplier advancements, there's a number of things, right, related to our industry. And again, you're going to need to find those in reliable, valid sites. The professional association is a given. I would absolutely look at what's going on in my industry based on what the professional association is saying is happening. That's their job, is to help give us insight. That's why examples like I've already shared with the Michigan Snow Sport Industry Association, they went to the Ski Association, right, the National Ski Association, and they know now the percentage of people by age group that alpine ski versus snowboard. Again, critically important that I know that as an industry, because now I might look at my ski resort in Michigan and my geographic reach and find out, geez, how many people are even in that age group? And if I'm marketing towards the 50-year-old market and I'm trying to market snowboarding to them, that might be a little problematic if 5% of the whole market is doing that. Okay, so that kind of example, again, every student marketing plan has industry insight. Your job is to gather it as well. I just need you to get a couple pieces, but that industry assessment is going to be incredibly important, so you know the latest, greatest issues, challenges, ideas, trends, markets, etc. that exist. I tend to find our industry professionals tend to know what's going on in the industry. They stay abreast with publications, they read it, they know it so well, but sometimes we don't really give ourselves that, take a step back and really look at what the hottest and greatest is. I tend to believe that attending again an annual conference for an association is incredibly important, even just to get an industry assessment. The more I know about what's going on in my industry in a big picture, I know what customers might expect from me, because they're getting it somewhere else. I know competitive advantages. There's a whole bunch of insight. So I hope you can tie to your professional associations. They provide great insight to help me be better at my business. So again, you know, the idea is you would make some conclusions related to what you learned about what's going on in the industry, and then you'd bring that to this marketing plan as well. And then kind of the third assessment that needs to be completed, it might be driven internally or externally, meaning the market assessment. And what we're trying to gather here is a complete understanding of internal and external market segments, including their use, satisfaction, interest, behavior, etc. Anything about the market we want to know. So for example, we had internal data related to a fitness center that had never been analyzed. And so all I did was analyze it quickly on an Excel spreadsheet, and could tell them now that 19% of the people they currently served were between the ages of 40 and 49. but 15% of the market was between 60 and 74. And if you added all those up, 20, 30, 40, 50, 56% of their market was over the age of 40, which provided them some good insight. Further, we knew if any of the special pricing that they had given to certain markets was even being utilized. They had never looked at that. They had 12 different price points, and they had 7 of those price points with no participation. So they had a special rate given to a group of people, a corporate rate, a student rate, other kinds of a senior partnership rate, a donor rate that were never being bought or utilized. So even having that insight of underutilization of certain segments of who they're currently serving, but having insight related to how many people didn't renew their membership last year, the year before, etc. That was all in this data that was not being utilized before. 2 little pages, powerful. I call this the hottest stuff in the world, powerful insight and information, because it proved to be how we operated or made suggestions to how they would operate that business differently, both operationally and from a marketing communication standpoint. So again, data drives both set of decisions. It gives us business intelligence to help us that way. Conversely, just similarly, the Michigan Snow Sport Industry Association, we did a research study for them this last year just based on zip code data that they collected as part of their internal process. They collected people's zip codes because you had to give address, zip code, etc. when you registered to use one of their coupons. Well, they had never looked to see how those coupons were being used. So we quickly took those zip codes, put it into a GPS kind of system, and quickly could tell them, by scope in the state of Michigan, even though their marketing communication was all over the state, what areas it had an impact on. Because of a color code, you can see how many people used it. But not only did we look at 2015 data, we looked at 2014 data, 2013 data, and then 2012 data. They had it all laying around. It was in 3 pages, could use the information, could take their zip code data and do something with it. And strategically, they made some decisions about where they communicated and how they communicated as a result of this data. So this helped us understand who we were currently serving, so I can better ascertain who I'm not serving, and again, knowing my business objectives or organization objectives, how and where I'm going to focus my efforts to do that. So I want to understand, it might be internally driven, right? Or it might be externally driven. So in this case, here's an example on one of our student marketing plans. Right here, it talks about coffee consumption. And if I asked you, or you asked me before I had read this marketing plan, what markets of people drink more coffee than others, I could have made a guess, but I really have no idea, right? Well, there's data that people are gathering to tell me what markets of people drink coffee. And if I have a coffee house, right, and I'm trying to be strategic about my marketing plan, which this one was, I would learn that the largest percentage of coffee drinkers are Hispanic Americans. 74% of the adult market drinks coffee. Who knew? Second greatest, 61% are Caucasian Americans, 44% are African Americans. So already proving data to give me insight about my business that I may or may not have known, but now I have some evidence that helps me better understand maybe a tactic I'll take to increase a market segment. I can see now where there might be a market segment of people that I pursue aggressively because they drink more coffee than other market segments. So this market assessment, lots of data out there internally and externally to help us learn more about our business, our industry, the people that we serve or don't serve. Remember that study done on people who don't participate in snow sports and why? Oh, huge good insight. I'm going to make decisions based on insight that the reason you're not coming is because you don't have anybody to do it with. Then I'm going to make sure we find and help you ski with somebody else, right? Or at least connect people together if the barrier is so prevalent. Let's remove the barrier. Do our ski business different than everybody else's ski business. Do my coffee house business different than everybody else's coffee house. And have a more profound effect about our business and our industry. So at a minimum, your market assessment, you're going to look at census data, and you're going to understand via census what your market looks like overall, whether you pull from them or not. But I only have you get a couple pieces of information. Know that that's a little fictitious. As in real market planning, we're going to gather a whole bunch. We're going to gather as much as we can in a short amount of time frame that makes sense and is relevant, that could help us write and engage in a more effective marketing plan and ultimately create a more effective organization. But I know if you can get a couple really good pieces, you could get a whole bunch of pieces. So use a couple as your gauge as a minimum. If you can gather a few things and add better value to this marketing plan, do that. It doesn't take that much more time, and there are obvious areas we need to grow in our business. This is not what organizations are doing well, and we need to understand a variety of assessments if we're going to be as effective as we can in this market planning process. So having said all that, recognize we're working across this assessment to then take all of that information and finalize this section by writing what we call, again, a SWOT analysis. And our SWOT analysis is simply identifying our strengths, our weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So in this section, you also need to create a table that summarizes your SWOT analysis. You can see past examples from students. You need to create your own template and model that conveys the great detail you've learned from all of these assessments you've now completed. So your strengths might be, we have a large number of programs for families. We have well-run events. Our quality is a strength, right? Large variety of natural resource offerings, whatever they are. But our weaknesses are a lack of service training, our image, our hours of operation. You know, we're open 6 hours, everybody else is open 12 hours, whatever it was. Partnerships, cleanliness, those are our issues, right? Opportunities are what we call low-lying fruit, right? The things that are hanging there that kind of nobody's taking advantage of, our competitors, they're obvious, new markets, etc. Like, I'm going to go back to the snow sport industry, the fact that nobody's addressing a single skier or one person doesn't have somebody else to ski with. So maybe that's an opportunity on our marketing plan. Partnerships, etc. And threats. Competition always threatens us, right? The economy threatens us, sometimes in good and bad ways, depending, as we've talked about earlier. Unwilling partners, weather, safety issues. We need to understand each of these areas. So you need to create a chart that summarizes your SWOT analysis. Things you're good at, things you're not good at, opportunities you see based on all of these assessments, and things that threaten you. This becomes ultimately the conclusion document of all of your sections. So really, really important. Don't at all shortchange this, because we're going to use it for future decisions. Remember, what we're using now are the strengths, or how we're going to maintain these. Operationally, how we're going to maintain these. From a marketing perspective, though, what I'm asking is we're going to capitalize on these. I'm going to use the things listed in your strengths to create your marketing communication messages, right? And we're going to talk about these things on our website. And we're going to use these as the things because we're saying this gives us a competitive advantage. We are so good at these things, we're going to communicate them. If it's a weakness, we better have a plan on how we're going to improve on these. These are things that are going to hurt us. So very specifically operationally, we need to have this data to get better and improve, because if I can move this from a weakness to a strength, then I'm going to have a competitive advantage again. These are things I'm saying are important to this industry and to the markets that we're wanting to serve. Opportunities, how are we going to capitalize on these? And threats, how are we going to minimize these? Or how are we going to strategically prepare? If we have bad weather at this event, we better have a plan in action, right? We better have something, a whole plan, because it's going to happen, right? So prepare for it. And as an example with my Michigan Cares event, that meant that I'm buying ponchos because I didn't prepare for that threat. It missed it on my whole event planning, right? And I'm going to 10 different Walmart stores to buy every poncho they had before that event started, just to anticipate that threat. Thank goodness. Even though it's rained on every event we've had, we didn't need to break out the ponchos. The rain lasted just for seconds. So know that this SWOT analysis will prove to be an incredibly powerful document if we've done our homework right, if we've done all of our assessments, our social, our quality, our competitive, our organizational, our global, our market, our industry assessments. And if we've done all those, we will have a very powerful SWOT analysis, and this will prove to be the powerful next step as we move into further market plan development. So as I talk about this part of the process, underutilized, we need to get better at it. You're going to help your organization do that, and you're going to prove to me that you know how to do it, because it will make a difference, guaranteed. Have a great week. We will talk to you soon.